Hello and welcome back to the FL Studio Music Production course. This is lesson 5 where we will be going through the different drum rhythms and patterns that are commonly used in popular songs. In the previous lessons, we've created beats using different drum patterns, and I haven't explained why we use certain drum rhythms or why we program drums in the way we do. In truth, there's no rules for how you lay down your drum patterns, at least not in the way that music theory defines the rules for how we make melodies. There's no right or wrong when it comes to your drums. So the purpose of this lesson isn't to tell you that you need to follow these drum patterns. Instead, it acts as a guide to show you how the top industry producers program their drums, allowing us to see what patterns have in common and apply this to our music production. Starting off, we're going to go through different hip-hop drum patterns, specifically the trap subgenre of hip-hop, with artists like Drake, Future, Travis Scott and Playboi Carti coming to mind. This kind of music uses a tempo of around 140 beats per minute. Whilst I said there were no rules here, in 99% of trap songs, and actually almost all other genres too, you'll find there's always a very simple clap pattern laid down, which looks like this. You can use snare sounds instead of claps. This is completely up to the producer. From here, you can add accent claps for bounce. It's pretty common to also add these on the offbeat. This is where you don't add this on the beat, which would be the first of each colour, and instead add this on the third step. Here's an example of this. Now we have a clap pattern down, we can add a kick drum or an 808. It's worth noting that an 808 is a long tail kick drum, so if you don't know where to position your 808s, they should be hitting on the exact same notes that a kick would hit. The kick almost always hits on the very first beat of the pattern. Then the kick drum is played on beat or on the third step of the pattern. It's very rare that this will be played on the second or fourth step, unless the tempo is half timed, so 70 beats per minute in this case. I'm now going to turn the metronome off by clicking this button up here. Now we have a kick down, we can add a hi-hat. It's very common to right click on the hi-hat and go to fill each 2 steps. This would be a typical hi-hat pattern for trap music. From here, you can right click on the hi-hat and go into the piano roll and change the snap to grid up here to add rolls. Here's an example of this. One point that's worth noting, which I might not have mentioned already, when you're adding your drums, you almost always want to use the note C5. Since if we take a look inside the drum settings, we'll see that the root note is always set to C5. This is different for an 808 as you're using different pitches in this. And sometimes you'll see people use lower notes for hi-hats, but in general, always stick to C5 when you're using your drums. Now we can add a simple snare to add bounce. This will typically be played on the offbeat, so on the third step. Here's an example of this. And finally, an open hat is added. In trap music, this is either layered on top of the kick, so played at the same time as the kick, or it's played on the second or fourth beat. This here is an example of a finished trap drum pattern. Moving on, whilst up to this point, this course is focused on hip hop and trap beats, I'm going to show you the different drum patterns for other genres such as electronic dance music. Even if you only want to produce trap beats, this is certainly worth understanding. I'm now going to change the tempo to 130 beats per minute, as this is standard for dance music. Almost all dance music contains what is known as a 4 on the floor kick pattern. This is created by right clicking on the kick drum and going to fill each 4 steps. The reason for this is that it's a very simple drum rhythm which is easy to follow and therefore easy to dance to. From here, a clap is added every 2 beats. And an open hat is added offbeat on the third step. Now here's a typical drum and bass pattern using a tempo of 170 beats per minute. Essentially, I'm demonstrating here that every different genre has a different drum rhythm, and there's no right or wrong patterns to use. With that being said, my best advice for learning different drum patterns is to listen to your favourite tracks and take inspiration from them. That wraps this lesson up. Now you know how to program drums, and your knowledge will increase the more you listen to your favourite tracks and hear how the drums are programmed. In the next lesson, we'll be going through music theory and how to create chord progressions and melodies.